everyone, my name is Rebecca and welcome to my first Spanish learning series, What is Conjugation? If you're taking Spanish in middle school or just starting to learn the language, one of the first things you'll hear your teacher talking about is conjugating verbs. That word might sound a little confusing at first, but don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what it means and why it's important. Let's start with the basics. First, what is a verb? A verb is simply an action word. It describes something that someone or something is doing. For example, in English we have verbs like run, eat, talk, play, and sleep. If I say the sentence, I run every morning, the word run is the verb because it tells us the action. Now, here's where Spanish works a little different than English. In English, verbs usually don't change very much. For example, we say I run, you run, we run, they run. The verb mostly stays the same. But in Spanish, verbs change depending on who is doing the action. This change is called conjugation. So, what does conjugate actually mean? To conjugate a verb means to change the form of the verb so that it matches the subject or the person doing the action. For example, in English, we already do this a little bit. We say, I run, but he runs. Notice how we add an S at the end of run when we talk about he. That's a small example of conjugation. Spanish just does this a lot more often and in a more organized way. Let's look at the simple Spanish verb hablar. Hablar means to speak or to talk. But if we want to say things like I speak, you speak, or he speaks, the verb has to change. Instead of always saying hablar, we might say hablo, hablas, or habla. Each form matches who is doing the action. And that's why conjugation is so important in Spanish. It helps us understand who is doing the action, even if it isn't said in the sentence. Another important thing to know is subject pronouns. These are words that replace a person's name. In English, examples include I, you, he, she, we, and they. Spanish has similar words. Some of the most common ones are yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, and ellos. These words tell us who is doing the action, and the verb changes to match them. So, when we conjugate Spanish verbs, we are basically answering the question, who is doing the action? Once you know how conjugation works, you can build a huge number of sentences. For example, if you know how to conjugate a verb like hablar, you can say, I speak Spanish, you speak Spanish, we speak Spanish, and you can start communicating right away. Now, here's something that makes Spanish verbs a little easier to learn. Most verbs fall under three main groups. They end in AR, ER, and IR. For example, the verb hablar, which means to speak, comer, to eat, and vivir, to live. Each of these groups follows a pattern, which makes conjugating them much easier once you know the rules. In the next videos in this series, we're going to break down these rules step by step. First, we'll learn how to conjugate AR verbs in the present tense, then ER, and then IR verbs. Each video will be short and focused so you can easily practice and understand the patterns. Once you learn these patterns, you'll be able to conjugate hundreds of verbs in Spanish. So, if conjugating seems confusing right now, don't worry, that's completely normal when you're first learning. Just remember, a verb is an action word. Conjugation means changing the verb so it matches the person doing the action. And once you understand those ideas, the rest of Spanish verbs start to make a lot more sense. In the next video, we'll learn exactly how to conjugate AR verbs in the present tense, which is one of the most common verb types in Spanish. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.